We are live. This is the market update. I am your host, Bill Noble. If you need a roadmap in crypto, stay with this channel. Turn on alerts and pay attention to the Discord notifications so you know when we're going live. And if the content works for you, please check out the feedback form in the description. All right, let's welcome who is here this morning. Corey, Dark, Daniel plays paintball in the house. Good morning. All right. We have Vadotes, Gian, Zepetis, SGSG, the original, VA Buds in another original, Horace, Joshua, Leo. Okay. Okay, folks. Something maybe a little different. We've been adopting a fireside chat format for this lately because of slower price action. So we'll use the news to go through it. But I think the theme of this is like where is the truth? Okay. So US retail sales were better than expected. So naturally, the algos this morning will buy the dollar, and, news agencies that are favorable to the government will report stronger than expected retail sales. All right, we'll go through in the PowerPoint why that's not true. What they do is they release these numbers, they make them look really good, but then they release the last period's numbers. They revise them all lower, month after month after month. So nobody actually knows what the truth is. Now, this is the truth. Subway calls emergency meeting with franchisees as sales plunge. I mean, Starbucks fired its CEO, and there are people who just cannot afford to do simple things anymore. Now, I don't know if this shows up in the economic data, but I would imagine it shows up at the polls. And I've got something somewhere in here where, people claim that it's price gouging. So, Harris, who is, obviously on the left, no judgment involved. The first economic plan of any socialist is price controls. And, if you take an economics class, you'll know that when you constrict supply, you get shortages, or when you cap price, you get shortages. In other words, suppliers or, businesses are willing to supply, what the market needs at the correct market price. The correct market price is where supply meets demand. Now, I know the Fed has been pouring money into the system for 15 years. Okay. But the second you say, okay, prices are only going to go so high, that's it. Well, then suppliers are going to go, okay, well, we can only afford to supply you this many goods. And then you're standing in line, and people my age remember these lines that you would see in the Soviet Union back in the 80s, people standing in line to get vodka and potatoes because of communist or socialist price controls. Now, naturally, this is popular given what's going on in the economy, but the actual data on price gouging shows costs paid by businesses have risen just as much as the costs charged to consumers. If businesses are being greedy, they're doing it all wrong. Now, I'm sure there is price gouging going on. I'm sure there is. But I don't think businesses purposely want to hurt their customers. They don't. The simple fact of the matter is, when it comes to, like, say, the inflation number from yesterday, inflation isn't budging. It's not budging, right? The Fed wanted inflation at 4%. or they want it below 4%, and it's just stuck there. That's at least with the government statistics that are coming out. Inflation, in reality, is obviously much higher. And even though I've been saying inflation is old news, the Fed is not going to cut rates to save Subway and Starbucks. The Fed's got to cut rates to save the customers of Subway and Starbucks, but the market isn't giving them any room to do it. This could be part of the reason why crypto is stalled out here. Okay, so just as a reminder, politicians have got to get the crypto bro vote in a tight race. It seems to be taking the Democratic Party a really long time to figure out how to do this when all they have to do is fire Gensler. But, they're going to try to pass a bill, and then they're going to eventually have to get Harris on some type of crypto show. My guess is currently Harris is being coached, on public speaking for Twitter Spaces, live streams, and how to stand up there and debate with Trump so that, she sounds credible and Trump doesn't turn it into like a stand-up comedy routine where he just kind of makes fun of her. All right. So they got to get the crypto bro vote. As we said yesterday, inflation is first and foremost a monetary phenomenon. You put money in the system, you print, inflation goes up. You don't stop printing or you don't drain money out of the system, inflation doesn't go down. So, a lot of politicians are now talking about the way to stop the money printing is to back the dollar with gold. With the amount of money that is in circulation and the amount of money that's printed, you'd have gold at, $50,000 an ounce if they were really going to do that. They'd have to do like a fractional banking. And there's this idea which, is gaining traction with think tanks like this about the U.S. having a strategic Bitcoin reserve. In other words, sometimes I wonder if all this choppy action in front of the election, the thing that actually ends it is any new administration coming in and going, yeah, we need to buy Bitcoin and we need to buy gold now. Right. It's almost like a wealth effect. As if you have Bitcoin and the government's buying it and the government needs it and you need it, then that creates this like huge bullish case, which has, Morgan Stanley, Goldman, MicroStrategy, and everybody buying it now. The thing that's weird is that because it's August, because it's slow, because the economic data is not Fed favorable, you get this like frozen price action in the market, right? So on the political front, Republicans are upset because, there's a crypto super PAC that's writing checks to Democrats. My attitude is the crypto PAC can write checks to anybody that they think is going to be positive for crypto. Now, I had it hard to believe that, given what has gone on with Gensler, that the Democratic Party is favorable to crypto. But, the crypto vote is not just one party. One party's jumped on the narrative. Now, Marathon Digital is buying $240 million worth of Bitcoin. My understanding is when they issue debt, it was oversubscribed. Bitcoin mining was less popular in July. So obviously the slowdown in like action in Bitcoin hurts the miners. But according to an article, which, I think I lost it, but the fact of the matter is when Marathon Digital went to borrow money, when they went to borrow money to buy more Bitcoin, the offering of the bonds that they made to the market, to Wall Street, as Wall Street says, hey, everybody, want to buy Marathon Digital bonds? Everyone scooped it up. Why? Because they know they're using the money to buy Bitcoin. This is another thing that's happening. The Swiss National Bank, which is essentially an equities hedge fund, like not kidding, they're buying MicroStrategy. My understanding is that, they have approved a leveraged trading product for MicroStrategy. In other words, you can not only buy MicroStrategy now, but you can, yeah, here it is. SEC just approved the first leveraged MicroStrategy ETF. So in other words, you can buy MicroStrategy inside of an ETF, and inside of that ETF, they're using options to create leverage. So for every dollar you put in, you can get twice the punch that you would if you just bought MicroStrategy's stock. So this whole idea, going way back, that, if people need to own huge chunks of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin supply ever dries up, the fact that Saylor has been buying it and buying it, buying it, buying it for years means that if anybody ever has to get a gigantic supply of Bitcoin, they're going to have to take over MicroStrategy. They're going to have to take over MicroStrategy, right? And frankly, I think at this point, everybody knows it, right? Okay. So, you can say what you want about guys like Trump. Some people like him, some people don't. This article's not coming up. He did an absolutely brilliant job of stealing the crypto narrative from Kennedy. In other words, Kennedy can actually sit down and explain to you how the government owning Bitcoin helps back not only the debt, but the currency. So, the fact that Trump effectively stole that, and his kids are pumping this narrative by saying, hey, we have announcements coming out. I mean, they gotta have that crypto bro vote in order to put them over the top. Huber's Ranch, Andre, Tex Media, welcome. Shobith, good morning. Brandon, Zach, Arendam, Alexandra, Joshua Saint, welcome to the show. Okay, let's go to PowerPoint. And again, with this, it kind of has this like fireside chat elements to it. The US could obtain 5% of all the Bitcoin supply. Theoretically, if it reached the type of targets that Michael Saylor's talking about, they could pay off the national debt. Okay, that assumes they could take the profits on all that Bitcoin without wrecking the market. But, this is undoubtedly going to gain traction. I think this idea of Trump and this very simplistic made in America, owned in America type thing means that, you could start getting euphoria in Bitcoin, come the election. You may have like waves, like, if Trump wins, it may go way up for 2 weeks. It ain't correct. But starting like next year, who's the seller of Bitcoin? Who's the seller? That's the whole thing, right? I mean, I know a lot of investment banks have already bought the Bitcoin ETF, right? But who's the seller of spot Bitcoin going into next year? Back to inflation. This is a quote from Paul Volcker. It's a sobering fact that central banking has led to more inflation, not less. We did better with the 19th century gold standard with passive central banks, with currency boards, or even with, free banking or no central bank. The power of a central bank, after all, is the power to create money, and ultimately, the power to create is the power to destroy. Meaning, if they don't stop printing, I don't know how they can stop inflation. Now, not to get completely in the weeds, all of this eventually favors crypto. I don't know that automatic rate hikes happen based on what the inflation numbers said. Because if you have equities back up and zero evidence of movement on inflation, I don't know that this 95% chance of a Fed rate cut is accurate at this time. They need stocks down to justify a rate cut. I'm just going off the numbers. I know retail sales is terrible. I know there's all this the consumer is just cratering. And they're going to continue to crater because they left rates high for too long. But they need some cover to cut rates. Why? Because there's all this legacy nerd stuff out there about the 70s, some historical work showing, that there was a case where the Fed backed off, lowered rates after, an inflation spike. And when they backed off, inflation exploded again. Is that going to be true in this case with the consumer cratering? I don't know. But there's no evidence that inflation is falling. The inflation is old news, but they're not getting the evidence that it's falling. Okay, so here is more on retail sales and why, frankly, these numbers come out and everyone's like, oh, what's the number? The numbers are all fake, at least when they initially get released, because algos read the numbers and, it gives them a favorable reaction on the day of the numbers. So, big picture, the month-over-month rise, was, to hell with the soft landing, meaning retail sales were great. But for the 8th month in the last year, the previous month's data was revised lower. So they're measuring the changes in retail sales. It looks like a big change because the prior month's number was lower, thus making the current month like the beat is what they call it, when they beat the number, or it makes it look really impressive, right? So in addition to the July print, significant revisions in either direction could alter the trajectory of retail sales, right? But since algos only react to the here and now, a big jump from a sharply downward revised previous number will be viewed more favorably. You can't just make this up, right? Kamalanomics or Bidenomics, it hinges on data that appears better in the beginning and then it is revived lower. Okay. Will this manipulation ever end? This is true. We suspect it will be in November if, quote, the right person doesn't save democracy. In other words, as soon as you see Trump, you see actual numbers. Now, of course, that's really good for Bitcoin because that means they can get real on rate cuts, assuming they get friendly inflation, and they get the dollar lower. This is another underrated, longer-term Trump thing that people are not focusing on. Okay. Trump means lower dollar. So here's the dollar index. This got a little bit oversold. It got to a Lux algo point. And of course, with the retail sales number, they can't control themselves. They have to buy the dollar. I think a Bitcoin rally of epic proportions is triggered if the dollar index falls below 100. And in the meantime, I guess we're watching paint dry, waiting for that to happen. Okay, everybody, like I said, is getting pretty bored, right? I mean, even though boring is better than the 1987 crypto version Black Monday that we had 2 weeks ago, but Bitcoin has got to get itself back above this big trend line, that's drawn off the October and January lows. Okay, I don't see any problem with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin has to get some punch. You know what I'm saying? We need something that looks like people are willing to pay higher prices. And it's kind of similar with ETH, even though this is a different kind of trend line, right? Alts, I think, do have some room to do better only because, Solana, there's no reason to sell Solana below 140 unless you have an overall risk asset debacle. So Bitcoin's got work to do. ETH's got work to do. Solana is on support. And unless there's a geopolitical event, which we will talk about, okay, I don't know, man. Solana feels like it's holding up the whole market. It's just no case from a chart perspective. MicroStrategy looks okay, kind of on an outside the box trend line. Again, the intensity of the demand for this kind of stock, given the Bitcoin narrative headed into next year. Now, that said, like MicroStrategy is starting to look better. Like MicroStrategy in the Bitcoin ETF is starting to look better than the miners. Like, Marathon Digital went down. You have huge capitulation. Now, sometimes what I see with Luxalgo, just looking at this as a standalone, is that, when you get this kind of capitulation, you can get follow-on down moves. You can. But it takes a little bit of healing process, and there's resistance. So the fact that Marathon Digital is taking on debt to buy Bitcoin is, of course, a bullish signal for Bitcoin because other miners may have to do it. But I guess on the flip side, Marathon Digital is sending a signal that they're worried about their mining revenue and resorting to being a hedge fund by buying Bitcoin to try to make up for it. So could these stocks be a buy? Yes. Could they be a buy at lower levels, particularly if there's a nasty dip and there's one more nasty dip somewhere out there in Bitcoin? Yeah. I mean, again, there's been heavy capitulation, but clearly if you look at this chart, and this chart, MicroStrategy's got real support here. I don't know where the support is. I mean, they're banging on this old low from May, right? But I don't know. It doesn't look as promising. Coinbase hit a big support zone near 150, 160. But, Coinbase has got to get back inside this range. Coinbase was in this range for 9 months. It broke through the range. It's returned back to the top of the range. But, where's my punch in Coinbase through 200? Would love to see it. But I don't know how cowboy bullish you can be until, you get something that breaks through resistance. This is Galaxy Digital, which, absolutely love. Mike Novogratz's hedge fund. And, you have a trend line. You broke the trend line. Now you're coming back and you're grinding back to do a retest. So it's like, hey, guys, give me something that says, hey, we're going to punch through this trend line and keep going. Okay. All right. Now let's switch back to see who else is here. There are any questions out there? Okay. Live TA on USDT dominance. Okay. Do you think MAGA can recover? Okay. So let's bring up the screen for a little live TA. I don't know that I have USDT dominance. Oh, I do. Here we go. Okay, so what I'm just going to do is I'm going to look at this. I'm just going to put this up here with Bitcoin just to see. Okay, so when tether dominance gets to a bottom, okay, Bitcoin gets to a top. I guess that's because, the market cap of Bitcoin expands a lot faster, making the supply of tether look smaller. Tether dominance appears to have topped. Just like, like who wants to sell Bitcoin at 57K? I don't, right? There could be a big move in tether dominance soon. I'm not seeing anything here. It's amazing with Bitcoin at the same price that, like, Tether dominance went way down and now Tether dominance is way back up. And that could be because they're printing Tether, right? I mean, I heard Tether created like $1 billion. So, other than that, that would be the TA read. Now, meme coins. Okay. Sometimes when the market gets bored, meme coins can come back. But this Trump meme coin, this Trump meme coin really hurt people. Like, I know there's a guy I used to work with, who is like, he's been bull posting this for, like months. And, he didn't get out. He didn't get out at 16. So, I missed buying it at 3 cents like he did. But I got people out at the top at 16, said, hey, try buying it back at 7. And then, pretty much stopped out at 5. Now, here's the good news about this coin. I think it's the opposite of what everybody expected. Everybody wanted out of this coin before the election. Okay. And now, if it's going to go up, I think it's going to be after the election. So on a tactical chart, on a 4-hour chart, I don't really have any buy signals to speak of. If we look at a daily chart, you do have a Lux algo, like, momentum to the downside has slowed. You have good support at 280. Okay. There is obviously a lot of resistance above the market now at 4 and 5. So, it doesn't seem to make sense to give up at 3. Like, if you bought it at 7, like, once this broke, like, this is what I was looking at. I was looking at this as being like a support zone in here between, 5 and 6. And when they broke this, that was it. I think people could get bored and memes can return, which means this can go higher. Now, the only thing about this, which is what I said at 16, is if you think about overall demand for all things Trump, meme coins, sneakers, posters, whatever, right? Trump himself is going to capture that demand. In other words, if this token had value, it would be like as a collectible almost, or as a form of money that somebody accepts because Trump just becomes that big. It's like a cult of personality. He's always getting attention. And if somebody accepts Trump token for Trump merchandise, then the Trump token goes up. But the competitor for the Trump token is merchandise and collectibles and NFTs issued by Trump. People want official Trump stuff. I mean, look what happens with these sneakers. So I don't know. It's too late to say anything negative about this at $3, but if you bought the thing at 10, you need to like recompute on this, because I know guys are bull posting this for $100. $3 is very, very attractive if you want to take a shot. But listen, man, if you bought this at 7 or 8, right, or you were involved earlier, okay, you need a rally above 6. You're going to need a catalyst, which at this point can only be the election or a debate where he really kicks butt. You got to get back through 6, man. I mean, that's a 1X. And this is one argument I've been making about meme coins. It's like, look, meme coins, if people get bored, can come back. You could have meme summer. You could. I don't see anything really on the charts of meme coins. But so here's the net on Trump. $3 feels like good support. Puking at $3, unless it's for tax loss purposes, doesn't feel like it makes sense. But the lesson of this is that if there's demand for Trump, it's going to get captured by Trump. Okay? It's going to get captured by Trump. And that's why the coin is down. Okay. So we're looking at Timmy. I think we've talked about this before. Okay, I'm assuming this is against ETH. This is where all the liquidity seems to be. Okay, now with these coins, right? All these memes, you get these either 62 or 100% retracements, right? So all these memes go up. The project has to sell. The memes crash. I mean, I think you got to see this above 0.0019. That's the 76% retracement. The real level that matters is 0.0034. Okay, so this is a 12-hour chart. My guess is that if memes come back, you know, it's going to take one big meme to take off, whether that's Billy or Bonk or Pepe, in order for these other small memes to get dragged higher. Okay. So that's going to be it for today. That's the fireside chat. It's late August. The best case scenario, literally, even though it's not the best case scenario for content creation, is that the market actually does nothing. You know, I'm over crypto Black Monday. So that's it for today. We'll see you tomorrow.